It's another Blue Jackets game day. They're taking on the Boston Bruins, who are doing suspiciously well so far in this early season. But the good news is they will not have Brad Marchand tonight, who returned from injury last night and caused problems on purpose. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a very exciting call-up from the Monsters and some injury news from the Blue Jackets. That's all coming up today on Locked on Blue Jackets.
Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you news, stories, excitement, yelling. I do a lot of yelling recently about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and also over on YouTube. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button over there, why not? Basically, it helps me out. It helps you out. You get notified whenever episodes go live. Everybody wins, and we love a win-win situation here on Locked on Blue Jackets. I also want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline, because BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. And where this podcast is going to start is, unfortunately, some injury news. I may have accidentally cursed Nick Blankenburg. He's out with an injury, replaced by Adam Boquist. Super excited to see Adam get back into the lineup, and then he immediately broke his foot. So he's going to be out for a while. And this all kind of sucks because, like I said, I really liked Nick Blankenburg. I think he was doing a great job. I don't know when he'll be back. Some of the Monsters call-ups imply that it's not going to be long-term, which is good. Getting Boquist back into the lineup, I think, probably was a good thing. It just sucks that it had to be at the expense of Nick Blankenburg getting injured. And then he immediately got hurt as well. I joked about this on Twitter, but I do genuinely think that we should think about maybe like unofficially retiring the number 27, because it was Ryan Murray's number, and we all know how often he got hurt. And now Adam Boquist seems to be hurt. He gets hurt a lot. I don't think he's injury prone necessarily, because I don't think you could be prone to getting hit in the foot with a puck. But there's definitely, I don't know, we need to sage the number or something, just really uncurse the number 27, because for whatever reason it's really bad for the Blue Jackets. However, this does mean that David Jiricek has been called up from the Cleveland Monsters. He has, I believe, 4 points in his first 4 or 5 games with the Monsters. Was a guy that I still maintain is NHL ready. They just didn't have room for him in the lineup. And it looks like he's going to be making his debut tonight, which is super, super exciting. Drafted 6th overall in the most recent draft, had a really strong training camp. Didn't have the strongest rookie tournament, I don't think, but is definitely a guy that I'm super, super excited to see. I think he's going to really make a good case for maybe sitting someone else when Blankenburg comes back, because that's the thing. I think the problem is I like Andrew Peeke. We know this. I have been less critical than I thought I would be on Eric Branson, but the fact that we could have a right lineup of Blankenburg, Boquist, and Jiricek, and instead we're kind of just rotating through the 3 of those guys is really frustrating. But they're not going to take Andrew Peeke out of the lineup. They love him. They're not going to take Eric Branson out of the lineup because they're paying him $1 bajillion for the rest of time. But getting Jiricek into the lineup, I think, is a really good sign. Clearly, he's going to be playing probably significant minutes. I don't know that they would call him up just to play him for like 7 minutes and then sit him, especially when he's doing so well down in Cleveland. So that's really awesome. They also called up Gavin Bayreuther. I don't expect him to play much, if at all. I think he's basically the new Scott Harrington, which kind of sucks for him, but I wasn't super impressed with him last season. He was only okay. And the Blue Jackets have too many good defensemen to waste a roster spot on an okay player, I think. So glad to see Gavin Bayreuther back with the Blue Jackets. Hopefully he'll stay and be their 7th defenseman, at least until one of the top 6 is healed. The Blue Jackets had a lot of defensive bad luck I think, and that's on and off the ice, or well, not on and off the ice, but in terms of in-game, they've had some bad luck, and they've also had some bad luck in terms of all of their good young defensemen getting broken. So hopefully this does not happen with David Jiricek. I'm just going to find something wooden to knock on and hope that he has a really good game. It would be really cool if he was one of the Blue Jackets that scored their first goal in their debut. I think they had 4 of those last season, so maybe he will be another one. He's going to be the second 18-year-old to play in the last 10 years for the Blue Jackets, which again, super exciting. I just hope that they don't ruin his development and decide, hey, we're just going to play you for 6 minutes, and then as soon as you make that's going to play you for 6 minutes, and then as soon as you make a mistake, you are just going to sit on the bench. I don't think that'll happen. Brad Larson tends towards not sitting guys. I would expect him to play at least 12 minutes, just by dint of being a defenseman. They tend to play more anyway. Hopefully he gets the chance to play. I'm not sure who he's going to be partnered with. I'd like to see him partnered with Gavrikov, and then move Peak up to that top line with Werenski, because those two play fine together. And then for some reason, ungodly reason, we're keeping Bean and Branson together, even though they get caved in on a nightly basis. That's fine. Yeah, Gavrikov and Jiricek, I think, could be fun. I'm excited for Jiricek to show people what he can do. And I believe he is the 3rd player of that draft to play this year, which is cool. Juraj Slafkovsky obviously started the season with the Canadiens. He scored his first goal the other day. Shane Wright is being brutally mismanaged by the Seattle Kraken. So hopefully the same thing doesn't happen with David Jiricek. And I'm just, I'm super excited for him. I'm super excited for his debut, which is going to be tonight, by all accounts. They're going to play the Boston Bruins, and we're going to talk about the Boston Bruins in just a minute. But first, I've got to tell you all about BetOnline. They've got you covered this season. Props, odds, and lines. It's your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. And hey, if you want to go wild, put some money on, I don't know, David Jiricek winning the Calder. That seems like a fun bet that you could make. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, golf. They've got F1, they've got NASCAR, they've got basketball, football, and, most importantly, the NHL. So, hey, put some money on the Blue Jackets winning tonight after they got embarrassed against the Coyotes. I'm looking for them to come out strong against the Bruins. So head to betonline.net on your laptop or your mobile device to learn more, because BetOnline is where the game starts. So let's talk Boston Bruins. They have gotten off to like I said at the top, a suspiciously good start. Bergeron is back. I didn't think he was going to be back for a while. Brad Marchand made his season debut last night. He will not be playing tonight. The coaching staff have decided, I think, to ease him back in and not play him on back-to-backs, which is a surprisingly sensible decision from the coach of an NHL team. I fully assumed that they would throw him back in and be like, well, you're all good. Have fun. But I think with his age and, the severity of his injury, I think it's really good that they are doing that. And it also means that we don't have to play him tonight, which is great, because I hate to play against Brad Marchand. In terms of players to watch, it's always going to be David Pastrnak with the Bruins. He's got 10 points in his last 5 games, which seems rude. 4 goals, 6 assists. And the goalie has been doing pretty well as well. It looks like Linus Ullmark has been taking the bulk of the starts. He's 5-0. Got a 201 goals against average and a 936 save percentage. Frustrating, to say the least. I would expect that we'll see Ullmark, unless the Bruins decide to play Swayman. That wouldn't surprise me. The Blue Jackets have been seeing a lot of backup goalies recently, which is fine by me, honestly. Unless they suddenly decide to turn into Vezina candidates like Connor Ingram did against the Blue Jackets the other night. But I would expect to see Jeremy Swayman. I would expect to see Elvis back in the net as well for the Blue Jackets. I think I just feel bad for Tarasov after the Arizona game. Clearly, they decided to put him in, and he wasn't ready. And it went south quite fast. So, for better or worse, they have to hope that Elvis can get back to, Elvis levels. And we know what he can do. We've seen what Elvis could do when he's at the top of his game, and they need to, I think, honestly, just put him in and let him work through this slow start that he's having. I always think Freddie Anderson was a notoriously slow starter in basically every season for the Leafs and kind of for the Hurricanes as well. He had kind of a slow start to last season and then ended up winning the Jennings with him and Antti Ranta. So maybe that's kind of something that they can look at. I think that having a slow start doesn't necessarily, especially we're like, what, 7 games into the season? I don't think Elvis having a sub 900 save percentage is cause for alarm yet. But I do think they have to put him in and just let him work through whatever he's working through, because it feels like he's fighting it at the minute. And sometimes you can take a break and reset, and sometimes you just have to fight your way through it. And I think it's probably the second one for Elvis. In terms of other lineup, I don't expect there to be changes with the forwards unless someone got hurt, like literally as I'm recording this podcast, which has happened before because they wait until I'm recording to release literally any news. But with Line being back, Liam Foodie likely sits, and I would expect the lines to probably get a little bit jumbled. I think they're trying Roslovic with Jenna. No, excuse me. They're trying Roslovic with Line and Gaudreau, which I don't hate. I do think Jenner is a better option, but after the embarrassment that was that game against the Coyotes, like I can understand them wanting to switch things up. Fourth line will stay the same. They really love that fourth line for whatever reason. And then the second and third lines will probably be some amalgamation of. I'd like to see Sillinger, Chinikov, and Voracek, and then put Jenner between Nyquist and Johnson. I think that could be a decent shakeup. I think Nyquist and Johnson is a really good pairing. I think Sillinger works well with Chinikov, and I like Voracek on that line as well, especially because Sillinger and Chinikov can both shoot the puck like nobody's business, and they need a good setup guy like Voracek. Is that line the most defensively responsible? No. Is it a lot of fun? Yes. And honestly, at this point in the season, I know that we're like 8 games in, but I'm kind of like, hey, what if we just have fun for a change? Because the last couple of games has kind of felt like they were fighting through this game. So is the Boston Bruins the best time to maybe start having fun? Probably not, but I'm excited to see what happens anyway. In terms of predictions for this game, God, it feels like it's going to be messy. I haven't bet against the Blue Jackets yet this season, but it might be time. And I'm going to go with 4-2 Boston win because I hate myself. And I think the opening goal for the Blue Jackets is going to be scored by... You know what? Let's go Sean Corrali, playing against his former team. He's looked pretty good so far. He has, I think, 1 goal. Yeah, screw it. Let's go Sean Corrali to open the scoring. I have guessed right twice so far this season. So I'm on about a 25% success rate, but that's fine. I can make it up. And that's my prediction. 4-2 Bruins win, but the first Blue Jackets goal is going to be scored by Sean Corrali. In a minute, I've got a little bit more of my conversation with Cat Silverman. We talked about our current goalies, and then we moved on to just a couple of questions about the Blue Jackets' most recent goaltending prospect, Sergei Ivanov, who was drafted, I believe, in the 5th round this most recent draft. So I wanted to get some insights on him from Kat, and she gave me some really great ones. So that's what's coming up in a minute on Locked On Blue Jackets. But first, I've got to tell you about SimpliSafe, because the numbers do not lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen SimpliSafe home security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. They protect you with cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. They call you the moment a threat is detected, and they can dispatch police or first responders in an emergency. Even if you're not home, you're on vacation, you're at work, you're out for a run, if something happens, they can reach you, they can dispatch police, first responders, anyone. Blanket your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and outside your home, and they've got smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real. And this is really cool. They've got hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. And as someone that is currently staying in California, where fires and floods are both more frequent than I would like, that seems pretty useful. Our their monitoring agents use proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real, so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. So, customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl. Save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl to learn more. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. I want to talk about another goaltending prospect. So we picked up Sergei Ivanov. I want to say in the 5th round of the most recent draft. And I don't know. Like once you get out of the first round with prospects, I get kind of lost because I can only keep track of so many junior hockey players, But from what I've seen, a couple of the prospect guys are like, yeah, I had him ranked as in my top 3 goalies. And I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, the 5th round, what's the point?" But what do you see from Ivanov? Is he someone that's kind of maybe going to be a little bit of a hidden gem in terms of, obviously it's very, very early in the process, but what do you see from Ivanov so far?
I think he's in a good position to thrive. When it comes to the KHL and the subsidiary leagues, the MHL, the VHL, it's hard to necessarily just say, oh, they've played in the KHL. That's great. Because there are some teams there that really don't have a super high quality support system, and their minor leagues and their junior teams don't have incredible resources. But he's in the SK St. Petersburg system, which is a really hard system to beat, all things considered, whether for good reasons or not. They're very well funded. And that's good game action. He's being given multiple games at multiple different levels, which I know another thing we kind of touched on before hitting record there is it's not necessarily that goaltenders in the last draft or two haven't been good. It's been that a lot of goaltenders missed out on an entire year of development. And even those who didn't miss out on the years of development ended up with just really wacky depth charts that they were in. Some guys who, like I know Levi Merilainen, ended up like 2 or 3 guys farther down the depth chart in Finland than one would have expected because so many guys were playing overseas that it just shifted up the depth chart when the ECHL was closed for a bit and the AHL had a delayed start, and there really just weren't enough spots for all the goaltenders. So I think that a lot of guys that are being drafted, or were drafted rather, this past year in the 4th or 5th round are guys who essentially scouts were looking at these guys almost a year behind. So guys were being drafted almost like they were being drafted in their draft -1 season. So they were almost a year behind in development because goaltending was just as a whole with quality of competition and games played. And so some of those guys would have gone 2nd or 3rd round in any other subsequent draft. And so I had him on my list. I did not have him high enough that I ended up adding him to the scouting report that I did because I believe I only did the top 15. And there were a lot of really good North American goalies this year too. But I think he, just basing on the numbers that he's putting up for a good competitive team, I mean, St. Petersburg tends to have a lot of goaltenders who want to play for them, and he is holding his own and he's putting up good numbers. And I think as long as they keep an eye on him, he should be a good option down the line. I am excited about, like you mentioned, Jet Greaves is in the system. And I'd forgotten about that. That's a really pleasant surprise because he's a workhorse. Yeah. He's somebody who really took some raw skill and just almost like willed himself into success, which is exactly what you want to see. And that's that kind of almost like the Elvis mindset of, if I'm having fun, we're all having fun, so I'm going to have fun. And I think I don't think the Blue Jackets are the league's top prospect pool when it comes to goaltending, by unfortunately a long stretch, but they're certainly not the worst.
There's some what we will take certainly not the worst at this point,
really barren right now. they're certainly not one of them.
Yeah, no, I like Jack Greaves a lot, and he's another guy you talk about. He missed his entire last season in the OHL because it got shut down by COVID. He was essentially a walk-on that the Blue Jackets signed because they needed a goalie to do their rookie tournament, because the only other rookie goalie they had was Tarasov, who was not gonna. I think there was visa issues. He wasn't going to be able to play in Traverse City. And so they were like, well, we need literally any goalie that's eligible. So they ended up signing him. And then on the back of that, he got a contract, played in the ECHL, played in the AHL when Tarasov got hurt. And then every other goalie got hurt. Like there was a stretch where the Blue Jackets goaltending tandem was JF Berube and Jet Greaves, because it was only for like 3 games, but it was there. It was a time. So he ended up signing his ELC on the back of everything. And will he ever play in the NHL for real? Who knows? But right now he's doing real well in Cleveland. And yeah, like you said, he's a guy that will just play as many games as you give him. He played so many games because he kept going from ECHL to AHL last year. He played so many games. And I think he really kind of thrived, especially in the AHL. So I'm super excited for Jet Greaves to start doing more things and maybe, helping the Blue Jackets prospect pool improve a little bit.
Like, I feel like every other goaltender in the Blue Jackets system has just the most metal-sounding European names. We have Elvis Merzlikins, we have Yunus Korpisalo, we have Daniel Tarasov, and then Jet Greaves, which is also just like absolutely incredible.
It's so good. I don't believe Jet is the name that he was christened, but it's the name that he goes by, and I do love that.
I think it's even better.
Right?
No, I was fortunate enough to talk to the goaltending coach for the Sioux Greyhounds. Actually, this off season, I was at my friend's wedding where I was maid of honor, and I was outside of the room that we were all getting ready on the phone with this poor goalie coach, because it was the only way that we both had available. So I'm standing outside in full makeup talking about goalie prospects. But we were talking about the fact that a lot of those guys really didn't have access to full rink practice when there were so many COVID restrictions. Guys that weren't getting game action missed an entire season of team workouts and on ice workouts, and if they did, it was one-on-one stuff. It wasn't a ton of in-game situational play, and some guys didn't have access to a ton of dryland workouts depending on the facilities that were around them. I know that a former Vancouver Canucks goaltending prospect, Michael Gartig, had to set up a gym for himself in his dad's backyard in up in, I believe it was a PG British Columbia. So he was like way up north, just in a backyard with tires, trying to keep himself in shape just because of COVID restrictions. And so a lot of goaltenders, like you said, were dealing with injuries just because that normal cycle of workout to gameplay to end of season workouts to rest and recovery really just got disrupted for almost 2 straight years there, and trying to get back into the swing of things with a lot of uncertainty about when seasons would start. There were a lot of weird scheduling things. I know that I think it was the Dallas Stars who got the most shafted by it, but the Bruins also got a pretty tough break on it with just like high condensed game volumes. Really caused some injuries for goaltenders just because they couldn't find a good rhythm for making sure that they were keeping their bodies in shape in the way that they needed. And so I think the fact that Jet Greaves was able to get in the number of games that he did, I'm sure he viewed as just a blessing. And I think he seems like he genuinely enjoys it, which I think there are some goaltenders who don't necessarily view it as a job, but view it as like a very dire situation they have to win. Whereas it seems like he's like, I'm in here just to like stop some pucks, and we will see where it goes. I love him, I really do.
No, sorry, that really got me. Just a dire situation.
It seems like there's
no, I know what you mean. There's some goalies who just kind of this grim determination to get through the game, and some guys are just having a blast out there, you know. But,
may or may not be Yunus Korpisalo at times,
right? But yeah, this was great. I feel like I understand way more about what the Blue Jackets are trying to do and maybe succeeding or not succeeding. But if people want to learn more about goaltending, maybe they want to check in with the Arizona Coyotes a little bit more, where can people find you and your work on goalies?
Right now, they can find me on Twitter at Cat M. Is it Cat M Silverman or Catherine M Silverman? It would be cool if I knew my own Twitter handle. It is Cat M Silverman. That is Cat with a C, Silverman like Sarah Silverman. Right now, we actually just bought a house in San Diego that we have been renovating ourselves. As you can see behind me, I have my full goalie gear in the office because we haven't quite figured out where to put it yet. So I haven't been doing a ton of writing at the moment, but I did do some contributions to the prospect charts for Elite Prospects this past month. So hopefully I will be ramping things back up soon. And if people want to follow along, I will be dropping the results of my fantasy league once again, where I took 6 goalies so that nobody else has any.
Excellent. That is my kind of team, is the thing.
And
I would like
Elvis
teams
is one of
just
them.
goalies.
Elvis is one of them, and I am beating someone this week. I have no position players on my bench to rotate in and out, and I'm still beating someone because there are no goalies left.
I love that. Well, thanks for coming to talk goalies. Hopefully, the end of the season, we might be able to get together and have a much more celebratory conversation about how great Elvis is and how he ended up winning the Vezina despite his slow start. But yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to me about goalies.
Absolutely, anytime.
That's all I've got for you today. Tomorrow we are not going to have an episode because it's the weekend. Monday we'll talk about the Bruins game. We'll talk about the Devils game. That's on Sunday. Hopefully we'll be talking about wins. I really hope that we're going to be talking about wins. I'm bored of talking about losses this season. So that's coming up on Monday's episode. Thank you all for listening. I will be live tweeting the game probably. And you can find that over at LO_Blue Jackets if you want the show Twitter, _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER if you want my personal Twitter. And if you have comments, questions, criticisms, we're going to do a mailbag on Monday. So if you have questions for that, you can send them in to lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and also over on YouTube. And until Monday, make sure you stay locked on.